And we are recording. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a while. This is a new idea. No edits. No, just straight upload. Hit record. When I'm done, I hit the record button again, but this time it stops the record. It's a start/stop button. The idea being no more editing, no more post-production, no more editing after the fact. That takes away that safety net, that performative safety net. What if I was just doing this live? What if I was on stage? What if I was trotting the boards? So the works of the great bard himself, Shakespeare. Or just shooting the shit in front of a camera in my basement. Either way, that's the idea. No edits, working on my self-editing, my internal editing, my brain editing, because the one thing my brain does not do is edit, or math, or budgeting, or empathy, or reading social cues, and the list goes on. Just showing love. That's another big one that my brain just has no interest in. Anyway, wanted to talk about Snow White. By the way, welcome back to me. It's been a long time since I've filmed a video. Welcome back to you watching the videos. That's exciting. I don't know. I guess if you really want to know, I could do a video explaining those the many months long absence from the channel. It's not like an exciting story or anything really of note. It basically, I guess, boils down to I was sad for a while. But if you want, I could do a video for those who care, or for those who are interested, I guess I should say. But like I said, it's not a big deal. Nothing dramatic or anything like that. Just very, very, very busy, hectic, stressful period of time. So that's all. That's no big deal. We all have that. Yeah, I wanted to talk about Snow White, mostly because, obviously a lot of people were talking about, a lot of people had a lot to say about Snow White until it came out. And then all of a sudden, all those people that put that little morsel of, they put that little Snow White in their thumbnail on their hook, and they throw it out into that water and try to catch some clicks. That's clickbait, is what's on the end of that hook. Everybody was all about talking about Snow White until it came out, and then basically nobody had anything to say about it. I don't really care about this live action era of Disney movies. I think they're all, relatively mediocre, but in a way where I'm not, like, my childhood does not feel attacked. I am unoffended by a company, remaking something to try to keep making money. Part of me says, why don't they just put the old ones back in theaters? But the truth is, I have seen, it's like when they put Ghostbusters, the original, like, back in theaters for, like, for the anniversary. There's so many times where I've said, like, God, they should just play old movies. Like, this would be so exciting. And you've made it. It's like you made it, so in theory, basically, every ticket you sell is just pure profit, because that movie's made its money back. But I gotta say, obviously, like, I don't think you put the original Snow White back in movie theaters, movies have to make a lot of money nowadays, and I don't think putting Snow White back in theaters for a month is going to make them $500 million or $1 billion, whatever they're looking to make now. I think that there's a business side that says, look, we spend a couple $100 million on a movie that can make us $1 billion, plus there's merch, plus there's toys, plus there's all these things. Like, I get the business side of it, but it's also a roll of the dice, because now we're seeing those movies not pan out for one reason or another. But I was never looking to see Snow White. I'm not a fan of the original. Full disclosure, I find it boring. I definitely watched it once or twice as a kid, but it never really grabbed my attention. And then coming back to it as an adult, I remember when the collector's edition DVD came out way back in the day. I grabbed it because having a lot of these things in this high quality DVD format, which was very exciting at the time. Plus the loads and loads of special features, which was also the greatest thing about the DVD generation, was it was really the generation of special features, and I think it's a damn shame that that's something that has disappeared with the loss of physical media formats, and with the fact that streaming hasn't bothered to set up those pipelines for special features. I think is a real shame, because for people who love the behind the scenes of movie making, that stuff was invaluable, and it sparked my imagination and made me care about the behind the scenes more, and it educated me on how the behind the scenes of movie making works, and like a lot of the moving parts under the hood. Any case, never a giant Snow White fan, but my wife and I recently took a trip, and we were flying back, and it was one of those fancy planes, aka not the cheapest plane, which is usually the kind of plane I'm on, but it had the TVs on all the seats in front of you, and you could pick from TV shows and movies and whatever. And at first I was just going to watch The Monkey again, not because I'm like, oh, this is amazing. I liked The Monkey. It was good. But I wasn't like over the moon with it. I thought it was creative. But, I thought, we're on the plane, like a second watch. It's probably deserving of a second watch for me to sort of absorb it a little bit more. But then there was also Snow White, and I thought, you know what? I don't have Disney Plus. I'm not gonna really probably ever be in a position where I want to pay money to watch Snow White, but I'm in a metal tube, flying hundreds of miles an hour through the air for the next 3 hours. Why not watch Snow White? So I did. And I guess spoiler alert for my overall feelings is to look at it two ways, because I'm not the demographic for this movie. So I need to view it from my perspective, which is the perspective I'm most used to viewing things from. I do it almost every day. But to also view it from the perspective of kids, that it is a kids movie trying to think, and obviously, like, I would argue, as much as people don't want to say it's for boys or for girls, it's Snow White. It should be for girls. It should be mostly a girls' movie. That doesn't mean boy or a man can't enjoy it, but nothing's just made for everyone. Like, it's made with somebody in mind. So trying to think of it from the kid's perspective, I think good. I think there were some catchy songs, some terrible songs, but more catchy than terrible. I think it is a very straightforward hero's journey It is a very simple story, but for those of you who watch the channel, you know for me, a lot of my opinion of things comes down very often to the story that I am told, or the story that this piece of media is telling me. And was it an engaging story? Was it told well? Because for me, everything is storytelling. And I just want to be told a fun story. I just want to be taken on a journey. And from that perspective, Snow White is a very simple, very straightforward hero's journey of a story. So that I like. I respond to that. I think movies can be... I think a movie like this shouldn't be challenging. It is a kids movie, a dopey kids movie, pun intended. It is supposed to be for fun. And obviously, all the behind the scenes aside, the controversies aside, which I do separate. Like, I'm sorry, like, unless there's obviously some lines in the sand, but I feel like 99% of the time, I separate the people that make the movies from the movie itself. You know, I do my best to go into a movie not thinking about the controversies or not thinking about, I don't know. It's like, we should all assume that at least 50% of every single person we're looking at on screen in any major, like, Hollywood studio movie is probably, at minimum, a complete piece of shit, right? Like, just a giant asshole. Maybe not in a criminal way, but let's say 25% of the people you're looking at on screen are probably, like, monstrous criminals in some way. Like, awful people. I think we all just need to start assuming that and decide, like, are you gonna just never watch or support anything coming out of the Hollywood studio system, or are you gonna watch movies? Because we gotta kind of get over that hump a little bit. I don't care what an actress or an actor says or does. Like, again, if they kill my mom, like, if Matthew Broderick knocked on my parents' door and shot my mom, I'm probably, no matter how good it looks, no matter how good the trailer looks, I'm probably not going to go see the next Matthew Broderick movie. There are lines in the sand that I will draw. But if a guy, it's, and, like, obviously there's, I'm not going to get into it. Like, we don't have to say all the words. But obviously there's lines in the sand. And some are much less extreme than that example. But point is, this is a movie I didn't feel the controversy as I was watching it. I do think, there was obviously all the controversy. The one thing I want to say, because it does affect... I think it does affect the story being told in the movie, and that is the dwarves controversy. Because first there was some press release that said that it, and for it's 2025, I understand the push. I lived through the 80s, 90s, and 2000s, and they all had their own push and pull with political correctness. There was always that, we can't, we shouldn't do this anymore. Like, there has always been that sort of expansion and retraction, that sort of that movement, always. So I 100% understand in 2025 a studio saying like, well, we can't do this exactly the way we did it back then because it's just times have changed. And what, I think the press release that was kind of the first controversy said that they weren't going to be dwarves. They just said magical creatures. And part of me realizes now, because the dwarves do have magical powers. And again, they don't call them the dwarves in the movie. I'm just going to call them that because that's who they are from the old movie. But they have like their hands glow in the movie, and then they put their hands like on the stones down in the mines, and it will light up all the precious gems that they're mining. And maybe they have powers beyond that. We don't know. But so there's a magical quality to them. They're not just little workers. And I guess the logic being that because they have this power that lights up the gemstones, that they are the ideal people to go mine for gemstones because they can find them more easily. They don't have to search for them. Although that is not something ever expressed in the movie. That's just me writing my own fan fiction, writing my own lore behind the scenes. But there was that controversy because they called them magical creatures, but then everybody said, well, what does that mean? Are they going to be like aliens? Are they going to be, country bears? And I kind of wish they had been forest, like some sort of like stocky with big bellies, little forest creatures. Like there'd be a bear, it's like Grumpy would be a bear, and Dopey, or there'd be like Sleepy could be a sloth. It doesn't matter. It's a fantasy forest. It doesn't matter what is indigenous to a certain forest. But it's like you could have just had them all be like fun creatures. I don't care. Again, it doesn't. I don't think it affects the story that you're telling. And again, for me, that's the most important part. That is the most important part. Is that what I said? See, that's the beauty of no editing. But then obviously the trailer started coming out, and then the another controversy was the uncanny valley of the dwarves. I don't 100% agree that they're like hideous or upsetting to look at. There's certainly some mild Polar Express vibes because they are that sort of photorealistic human face, but that's exaggerated. It's not quite right. I settled into it pretty fast. It was maybe a little jarring in the first couple minutes, but I will say in a lot of the close-ups, you can tell they definitely spent, I think, more time on Dopey's face because they knew he was going to have a lot of close-ups and need to show a lot of expression in his face. And same with Grumpy. I think because Grumpy got a lot of screen time, I think they spent a little more time on his face, and maybe that it was a little bit more exaggerated. It was a little more easy to view as a character, but ultimately it didn't. I wasn't like uncanny valleyed a whole lot with them. I will say, I think their design is very lazy. Obviously, a lot of the design is just taken directly from the old cartoon, but there was a shot, I think it was when they were singing Hi-Ho. Hi-Ho! But it was like a close-up of their feet walking. And I noticed that every single one of them had different kinds of shoes. And I thought, that's an artist wasting their time. Because there was no larger character design going on. It was, but they would have been like, well, we made each one of them have a unique pair of shoes, and look at their outfits. And when you're zoomed in on these details, there's all these unique little details. They're all different. They're all handcrafted. And then you zoom out and it all looks exactly the same. It makes no difference. And that's the kind of thing that bugs me with this era of the photorealistic Disney movies, is I think there has been this shift away from character design. And I don't know, I don't have the words to, there's this, on opposite ends is just a photorealistic lion. And on this side is, Mufasa's design in The Lion King. And obviously it's not proportioned the same as real life. It's stylized. And there is that, I feel like there should be somewhere in the middle, and that's, I think, where computer animation had been for a long time, but now it's just seems obsessed. At least Disney seems very obsessed with photorealism. And I think it's to the detriment of all these movies, because nobody is going to put a version of this Grumpy on a t-shirt. No way, no how. Because it's not just that, it's not whether it's appealing or not. It's not a distinctly designed character. And that's what you need. It's like every character in Snow White you could view through the lens of like a graphic designer. Like, they have form and they have lines and shape, and there's almost like music in the lines of these characters. A well-designed character. And when you're just making something photorealistic, that goes away. There's no music there. So there's that. There's the controversy with the photo that came out with the characters that people thought were going to be the dwarves, and it was like this ragtag, a bunch of different. It was all real people, and people thought those were the dwarves, and that turned into a big controversy. My phone keeps buzzing, and. Now seeing the movie, it turns out that those characters were the thieves. Now I can't. I'm gonna look stupid. What is the Prince Charming character in Snow White? What's the guy's name that falls in love with Snow White? Nope. I'm not remembering his name. Doesn't matter. But he is, he's a thief. He lives out in the woods with the thieves. Very Robin Hood. So whether or not, some people are kind of speculating, well, were those thief characters, because there's 7 of them, 7 thieves, 7 dwarves. I have seen people speculating, were those the dwarves, and then when there was this controversy, did they redesign, did they film a bunch of new stuff for the movie and shift those characters over, make them thieves, and then also have the dwarves? I think it's not out of the realm of possibility, but I think it's unlikely. Those characters do not seem to me like they would be singing hi ho, it's off to work I go. So I don't really buy the fact that they would have those. I don't think, from everything I saw in the movie, I don't think you could transplant those characters into the role of the dwarf roles and have it doesn't. I don't think it would. It makes no sense. It wouldn't have fit in any case. So it also means you got a lot of side characters. I think they're. I am unoffended at worst by all of the characters. I liked most of them quite a bit. I guess I should say the Gal Gadot is the weakest link in the movie. There are times when she's very, she's hamming it up in a really great way. When she's doing, she can play that sort of seductive, evil, breathy queen very well. Those scenes, she was pitch perfect. It was when she needed to get angry. I think that sort of her limitations really started showing very, like, for all to see. The villain song, she's also not a talented singer, but I also think the song was a bad song. So I don't necessarily blame her for not being able to keep up with the... I don't know. It was just a terrible song, and I don't even know if a more talented singer would be able to salvage it. So I don't entirely blame her, but that sucks, because I love a good villain song. Ursula, Poor Unfortunate Souls, maybe the greatest villain song, but I would say pretty much across the board, it's like you always give the villain a good song. Be Prepared, obviously, Scar, phenomenal. I forget, what's the guy's name in Hunchback? Because it's like the She Must Die song. They're always good. They're so much fun. This one was just junk, just disposable. I forget the actress's name now, Rachel something. I should know because I had to hear her name nonstop with all the controversies. But I actually liked her a lot in the movie. She has an amazing singing voice. I think she's a fine actress. She's charismatic. I liked her quite a bit. I would say across the board, except for really Gal Gadot's moments of weakness, I mostly liked everybody. And I think with a movie like this, that's a really important element, is pulling together a charismatic cast. And I think they basically did that. I also thought, by the way, I always feel like when I watch this stuff back, I always feel like I must be looking at, I must have like a whiteboard with notes, which is something I've always thought of doing. But I just start looking at stuff in the basement, so I apologize that I'm just like looking at a reusable tote filled with yarn. And I just start looking at it. So sorry about that. But I really liked the movie. Had a big heart, and believe it or not, for somebody who grew up on 80s horror and loves gore and loves all that, loves the more depraved, trashiest of the trash. I love a movie with some heart. I love a movie with a happy ending. I call it a footloose ending. I want every movie to end with Kevin Bacon running into a room and saying, "I thought this was a party," and then Footloose starts playing and everybody dances for like the next 5 minutes. That's what I want every movie to be at the end. And Snow White has a Footloose ending, so you score points with me like right as I'm leaving the theater with a big joyful ending. I also thought it was very cute. Spoiler alert, but I doubt any of you care. Dopey, there's a narrator throughout the movie, and at the end of the movie it's revealed that it's Dopey, and he could talk, but he was afraid to talk because he was afraid he would get made fun of, and that kind of message. And the fact that at the end of the movie it reveals that Dopey's been narrating the whole time, I thought was very sweet and very cute. So sorry, but I see by the clock I'm keeping to a half hour on these videos, and I have already rambled for a half hour, so I will let you go. Please subscribe if you made it all this way. Thank you, everybody, for the decade or more of continued support here on the channel. I really do appreciate it, and I'm happy to be back, happy to be making stuff again. But yeah, that's going to be it for today. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye. Got 30 seconds left. Could I do a little dance? That's my skills. They don't pay the bills.